So welcome. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Steve Augeri. I'm going to use the mic, even though it's a small group, just because otherwise I'll be yelling for the next 15 minutes. So I want to say welcome to OIS. I'm the head of school at the JVLR campus. Thank you, goes without saying, for taking time out of your Saturday to come in and have a listen to the information that we have to share with you. It's nice to see that there are students in the crowd. We've been talking to a lot of parents all day long, so it's good to see some of the younger folks who may actually be going to school here next year. Before we get too far down the track, I do want to do some introductions. So we are fortunate to have teams from both campuses here this morning, and that includes from the OGC campus, Ms. Priya, who is the Deputy Head of Secondary specifically for grades 6, 7, and 8. And then we also have Lucy Francis, who is the MYP Coordinator, and MYP covers 6 to 10. And then also Minal Dand, and she's one of our career and university counselors based, again, up at the OGC campus. On the JVLR side, we have Sandy Van Newton, who's the secondary principal, or head of secondary, and then Barb Batchelor, who is the MYP coordinator at this campus. And we do have other folks in their positions. They're up the road doing the IBDP session. So we don't have full teams, but we're kind of splitting our forces this morning. We also have admissions staff, and they've been very diligent at avoiding me all morning long because they don't like to be introduced in front of people. They sort of exist in the shadows and answer emails and do things like that. But I don't know if you've interacted yet with Radhika, Karishma, or Shivani, and they're very helpful. They're with us this morning. They just want to escape public notice. So when we're finished here, they'll be on hand, or they may wander in during the presentation. They'll be on hand outside if you haven't seen them already, and they can answer specific questions about the admissions process. Okay, I don't think we do, but I'll just ask, do we have any existing OIS parents in the crowd? No, everybody's new? Okay, good, I'm safe. I was worried that they would hear something and say, no, that's not been our experience. Or you'd think that I planted them there strategically. So good, you're all new, so welcome. This USP thing, I didn't know what this was before I came to India, and this is my 5th year here. And I think I have it right at this point. It's unique selling proposition. Is that correct? Okay. I do get asked this every once in a while. It's always the same people. It's always the dads. What's up with you guys? I put it up here because this is not going to be a sales pitch. I want to make that clear. And I don't want you to leave here thinking that you've been pitched to. Really what we're going for is honesty, is sharing with you to the best of our ability an honest representation of what it is that we believe, what we do with kids, what we think education should consist of. And that's really important to us. It's also very frustrating because it's very hard to do that in the space of a 45-minute to 1-hour presentation. To take everything that goes on within the building and boil it down to the essence. I really struggle when I do these presentations because there's so much to talk about. So we're going to do our best. I do want you to understand this though. It's a two-way street. And so while as a school, we approach the admissions process from our own perspective. We think about the process and how we're going to interact with parents and students and make decisions about who joins the school next year. We never lose sight of the fact that we're talking about a decision that you're making for your most prized possession in the world, right? And so that's really important. In some cases, I think, in most cases, it's a lot more important than the decision we have to make. So what I would ask of you is, we're going to go through, we're going to put our best foot forward, of course, about what we do, but I also want you to listen to that and think about what's important to you and what you think education should be, right? So there's an old saying about everybody has an opinion about education because everybody's had one. So there are lots of different ideas out there about all kinds of stuff, and we'll get into that as we go along. But do be thinking about that. What is it that you want for your child? What kind of experience do you want them to have? What you believe, and whether or not that's in line with us. Because from my experience, if the parents don't understand that, and if what we offer is something very different to what they want, then it's a difficult situation. And so as much as possible, we want to make sure we're all in alignment, okay? So what I'm going to do over the next 15 minutes is I'm going to talk about the things that are important to us from my perspective as head of school. And I think the number one thing that I like to get out there right away is the fact that health, safety, and security is our number one priority. So when kids are in our care, we make sure they're healthy, they're safe, and they're secure. And we do that in a number of ways. It's so important that we put in our mission statement, right, to provide a safe and caring environment in which the teaching and learning takes place. And so what does that look like on the ground? Well, it means that if you're a bus owner, it means from the moment you set foot on that bus, whether you're coming to school or going home, you're under the care of somebody that the school has appointed. So there are bus monitors on each of the buses. We can track the buses with GPS. There are cameras on there so that we know what's going on. We make every opportunity, or we take every precaution to make sure that it's a safe experience, even before they set foot in the building. When you came in this morning, I'm guessing it's likely that you encountered our security guards. They are stationed not just at the point of access, but also on every level of the building, both buildings between the two campuses. And again, they're there as a resource for us to keep an eye on things and make sure that it's a safe environment. And then we also make sure that the campus is ID access only. So for parents and students alike, IDs are checked every single day, right? For the parent who comes every single morning to drop their kid off, doesn't matter if they come every day and the guard is on a first name basis, the parent has to show his or her ID. Okay, so maintaining a secure environment is very important. Both campuses are also covered by a network of CCTV cameras, again, as an additional precaution. And even when it comes to, since we provide lunch on a daily basis, when it comes to the food that we put in our kids' bodies, we make sure that, yes, it's got to be tasty because we want them to eat it, but we also want to make sure that it's nutritious, that the menu is varied, and also when we're working with Sodexo, that we make sure they're preparing everything according to a set of pretty rigorous health and hygienic standards. And then there's lots of other things. Just so you know, we do have a clinic in each of the schools. It's staffed by full-time nurses. We also have a tie-up with a local hospital, so we have a doctor on campus a couple days a week. I go crazy with the water bottles in school. Everybody's got a water bottle. But in any case, kids drink a lot of water, so we make sure that we have water filtration systems all over the school. They're maintained on a regular basis, or again, so what they're putting in their bodies is safe. Fire safety equipment throughout the buildings, and then also AEDs, 2 in each building as well. And there's lots of other stuff that I can bore you with. We do safety drills on a periodic basis, so we make sure kids know how to evacuate the building and how to assemble so they can be accounted for. We do lots of other things to make sure that we have a safe environment. The ad does mention, and we spend a lot of time talking about our one school, two campuses framework. And so what does that mean exactly? Well, for us it means that we fall under one umbrella organization, and that we try to make sure that there's sameness across the two campuses. Whether we're talking about the way we're governed by our foundation and our board of trustees, to the statements of what we believe, to academic programs are the same across. It really reaches down into the nitty-gritty. Right? Even the uniforms, even the food that's served on the campuses is the same. Okay? And there's one other important thing that I need to highlight. We also believe that the quality of the teaching and learning is the same across both campuses. Right? When we recruit teachers, we're looking for the same marks of quality, whether we're talking about OGC or JVOR. But there is a difference, and it's important for you to know what this difference is up front. That is that the OGC campus is currently authorized to run all 3 of the IB programs. So that's the primary years program from nursery to 5, the middle years program from 6 to 10, and the DP in 11 and 12. The JVLR campus, since this is our 3rd year operating here, is in the final stages for 2 of those 3 programs. So you don't get automatically authorized. You have to have the programs up and running for a bit of time before you can invite the IB to come in and basically inspect and verify that we're doing everything according to IB standards and practices. So for the primary years program, we're looking at a visit in November, and we're hoping to achieve authorization soon after that. For the diploma program, we're in the very final stages. We're hoping to have a visit in November and then subsequently be authorized for the DP. MYP, we're a year behind because last year was the first year that we had the secondary school up and running. So we're looking at somewhere around a November, December timeframe for MYP. Within the MYP, what does this mean for your child? Does it mean that they don't get something that they're getting up the road? Absolutely not. In their day-to-day experience, in the teachers that they work with, in the learning that they engage in, everything is the same, right? So really they are in the MYP program. We just can't say that we're officially authorized until we complete those final steps. Okay? But it's a good difference for you to know about. Now, I'm not going to go through the list of what we have on each campus. I want to do something a little bit different. Hopefully, just from your limited time in here this morning between the lobby, the coffee shop, and in the auditorium, you can see that the facility is wonderful. We're very spoiled in terms of what we have and what we're able to make available to our families. Rather than do the laundry list of what we have, what I would like to do is talk about the facilities within the context of what the kids are doing within them, and really what the facilities enable us to do. Some of it, and this part is designed for all of the levels across the building. So you'll see photos of early years classrooms, and photos of primary classrooms, and photos of secondary classrooms. First off, does this look familiar? Raise your hand if you learned in an classroom environment that looked like this. Yeah, okay. Just a few of you. The rest of you are being shy, I think. I did. By the way, that is not a photo of my grade school classroom with me in there somewhere, and you have to figure out who I am. A little bit dated, but you get the idea. I did find a photo of a more modern twist on the traditional classroom. In this one, the kids all have devices in front of them, but the way that they're sitting, the position of the teacher, it's all the same, right? Teacher in the front, students in rows facing forward, each in an individual table. And so our facilities are not like that, and our classroom environments are not like that. This is a panoramic view of one of our senior kindergarten classrooms. It's actually a triple space. So those panels that you see on the left side and the right side turn and then close to form a wall. So if we want to have 3 separate classrooms, we can. But in the early years, the teachers keep everything open. And so there are still 3 classrooms worth of kids in that space, but they're all doing different things. And they may be with the kids that are in their group of 18 homeroom students, or they may be mixing with other homerooms, right? So again, flexible spacing that allows us to do lots and lots of different things. A lot of it is self-directed, right? So again, an SKG classroom where kids are learning together, directing themselves. In the primary, again, with the additional use of some technology. Our spaces allow us to really invest heavily in collaborative activities. So kids working together, whether it's in the early years or in the secondary. Right? Here's a middle school design classroom. And we do use technology as a tool for teaching and learning. So the kids have the iPads out, but their faces aren't glued to screens. They're having conversations and they're working together. And that's typically what our classrooms look like. They also allow for exploration. So whether it's an early year student putting together a really detailed drawing, or secondary school kids in a science classroom who are diagramming out what they understand about cell function and cell structures. Now, when I was in school, there was a blackboard at the front of the room, and only one person was ever allowed to write on that board. And it wasn't me, as a student, right? So this is what the classroom looks like. When we built this building and we designed these spaces, this is exactly what we were hoping to see eventually. Your kids kind of taking their learning and engaging in it on their own. And we also have spaces that allow for, from a very early age, the development of a sense of independence, right? So little ones learning how to serve themselves at lunch, right? Developing that sense of independence is very important to what we do. Now, probably some of you are wondering, haven't seen any adults in any of those photos. Do you have any teachers that actually work in the building? And they do, we have them. We have a large staff, highly qualified, care a lot about kids, and they do a lot of different things. Typically, they don't stand at the front of the classroom and talk to kids for the whole period, right? When I walk by a group of classrooms, usually it takes me just a few seconds to figure out where they are because they're in the mix. So in nursery, they could be leading story time. In secondary, they could be facilitating a visual arts lesson, again, in that collaborative arrangement. But usually they're always right in there, right with the kids, demonstrating what I think is always a very high level of attention and care, building connections and relationships. That's what we want to see. And then also, I think, one of the most important things that we like to see is that they're having fun doing it. Because we do feel like we are trying to create a happy environment for kids in which kids can learn. And so having fun is a really important quality for our teachers. The facilities are safe, whether we have secondary kids in the lab spaces or we have kids up in the pools on the rooftop doing their swim lessons as part of their PE class. They're always clean and well maintained, in large part because we think kids deserve the best. And their spaces allow kids to get comfortable and to just kind of be themselves. So this is a shot from the primary library. I love that the girl on the left has taken off her shoes. The better to get more comfortable as she reads. And most importantly, they're supportive of our programs. So the spaces that we have in the building allow us to do the things that we need to do with kids. Okay, I'm going to get back to this, but I'm not going to answer this question. I thought long and hard about this. How can we encapsulate some of the things that we believe about education, about how kids learn and how we want to teach them? And so really it's not about this thing called a USP. It's looking at this very young future, we hope, OIS graduate and what we're doing for her as we look ahead to her education and development. I will be very honest with you. A lot of our conversations when we talk to parents, it becomes clear that their vision of education or their idea of education really revolves around some of these things. Things like homework, ways of learning which we regard as being more rote, memorizing things, copying things out of books and copying things from the board, mugging up, which was another phrase that I didn't know when I came to India. Things like exams and a fixation on grades and the content, that knowledge that we pass on to students, right? That teacher standing at the front of the room and imparting all of the wisdom that the students can fill their heads with and then take with them. So it's notions that education is all about the content, it's all about the information, and also subjects. And I have to tell you that most of this has very little to do with what we do here, right? So the question then is, what do we do? And so to go back to her, I think we offer something that's better, truly. I think it's something that goes beyond what's asked of students in most other schools, way beyond in some cases. And so it's an education that's built on things like our vision. And our vision statement is right there on the back of those t-shirts, right? And it's talking all about independence and all about student empowerment. IB calls it student agency, right? So it's this notion that students should have voice and choice, not only in what they learn, but how they learn it, right? So we're always listening to our kids and being mindful of the direction in which they're heading. It's an education that's built on our core values. Now, knowledge is the first one, right? We cover that. We make sure they get the information and the subject matter that they need to get, right? So we don't scrimp on that. But then look at the other stuff. And I was having an interesting conversation with parents in the lobby just before this session about how my education didn't include that. It pretty much stopped at knowledge. Nobody taught me about social responsibility. These are things that I picked up along the way, but they weren't embedded in the curriculum. And they are here. We talk a lot about respect. We talk a lot about creativity and how to nurture a sense of creativity among our students. And we celebrate. We talk a lot about learner profile attributes. So one of the hallmarks of the IB programs is this idea of the IB learner profile, the traits that we want our students to develop, right? So they're communicators, they're thinkers, they're caring, they're reflective, and yes, they are knowledgeable, bottom center, that's still important. A lot of times people refer to these as the soft skills, which I think kind of shortchanges the importance of these things, because I think they're really essential skills. And so the idea is this. If I could nutshell, why do we do it this way? What is it that we're looking at? I'm looking ahead to the future, and I can't really predict what the world is going to look like by the time these kids go out into it. I can't pinpoint an essential set of things that they need that's going to unlock all the doors that need to be unlocked. I can make some educated guesses, but really the idea is that for kids, as opposed to us, parents and me, I went off into the world with a set of information in my head. And then hopefully, as that information changed, I could adapt with it and I could roll with the punches. Really, this is going to be the job of kids in the future, right? To learn and then to unlearn and to relearn. So the education that we're offering them is not based on the static set of information that they're going to get from a teacher or, by the way, from a textbook. It's the qualities and skills that we develop along with the knowledge, right, that are going to allow them to be flexible and to be adaptable. Because the point that I make is this. The skills that we teach, how to collaborate, how to be independent, research skills, those are things, if you think about it, that are never going to go out of style. But a lot of the content that they know and that they absorb in school will. I know that most of the stuff that I learned is obsolete. Some of those skills and attributes and habits will not go out of style and will not become obsolete. And so as we look into the future and we try to figure out what do we need to equip our kids with, this is really what it comes down to for us. And I know, and I'll say this, when I talk to parents and I start talking about the soft skills and the vision and the core values, I'm stepping out onto a very narrow ledge, right? Because we've all had an education that's built around certain things. When you hear this stuff, I think a lot of times it sounds, well, it's nice, but how are they going to be able to compete, right? And so we're trying to make sure that when they leave us, they have that skill set that's going to allow them to adapt, right? If they know how to do things for themselves, if they're independent, that's always going to serve them well. So in a very general sense, that's kind of the notion of education at OIS. And for more specifics, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Barb.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks, Steve, for giving us the big picture. For you and what you're looking for, this is launching into what we call MYP curriculum, Middle Years Program of IB. And I'm going to give you a little insight to that, along with my colleagues who also have a lot of skill in this area. As Steve said, we are about collaboration. We are a lot about students working together alongside with other students and their teachers. Teachers as those that are activating learning. So, briefly, you'll have a little bit of our story, just a little. The IB MYP framework, what that looks like, and then from Miss Sandy, life in the secondary school. As we are at the moment from grade 6 to 9, but of course we know that's growing. So, Steve said to you about where we're at, and presently for us in the middle years program, the one in between, we're in our consultancy phase, and after our consultancy phase, we put in our application for authorisation. I've already been told by our consultant who's coming in the beginning of December to make sure our application is ready to go, because she does not see that there will be any hiccups for what we've put forward already. So there's a lot that's gone forward. This is what it looks like. So Steve did say, and he's right, there is a lot of hoops to jump through to become an authorised school. It doesn't just happen with a tick off. It doesn't just happen with, we'll get that person in and we'll speak nicely and they'll go and say, let's be an IB school. The paperwork is humongous and it's ongoing in regards to making sure that we're going to be committed to the program and the children will get the best program. So you will see we're through consideration, request for candidacy, IB decision on candidacy, and we're now in the consultation phase, ready to go into authorisation. what is MYP about? Okay, so you've heard that it is a little bit different. And firstly, it is about big ideas. So there is some very big conceptual understandings that go through our MYP program. These conceptual understandings are not just, although we have separate subjects, and we do have 8 separate subjects, but they transfer across subjects. So students are able to make some really good connections in their learning, not to just stand alone in a subject, but to bring subjects together. It's about the why and the what of learning. It's not, as Steve put, about recall or factual. We're very, very much into why and what. This will give them education for the future that's going to be much more beneficial for them to face learning, problem solving, that we don't even know that exists at the moment. So that's really relevant to us. And put a little bit more, one of the things I do for when my teachers are coming together and looking at new units and working out what comes next, I always say to them, we've got to go beyond the 40 days. Yes, that could be factual recall stuff, and there will be a need for that factual recall. We need to look outwards to the 40 weeks and what are the concepts that we want them to understand, but much more valuable and beyond that, I say to them, tell me what it is that you want the students in front of you to know 40 years from now. Where and how are you going to put it in a picture so that they will see that there's going to be meaning much more than just right now at this moment. There's an awful lot, and there's an awful lot more happening where we know, and just recently I had parents in for looking at assessment in MYP, and I gave them a task, and out of about 35 grade 7 parents, they were somewhat blown away by what was in front of them. They were like, help, this is really complex and very difficult. And one of them said, she had her phone out, and she said, oh, I know I did area of geometry, shapes and maths, but I can't remember that. And she had her phone out, and she was working out the area to then apply it to a real life problem. And I said to her, that's the very reason why we don't want to spend all our time in the recall and trying to look at those formula every bit of the way, when we know that students will be able to use lots of things to actually look at that part. We know they need a certain body of knowledge, but they need to know how to apply it. So that's really relevant. So 40 years from now is really important. And I'm going to pass on, just gave myself a blank slide to remind myself, Miss Priya, who I worked with at OGC as assistant MYP coordinator, and Priya taught me so much in MYP, and she's going to talk to the actual program model.
Thank you, Bob, and I think I learned as much from you as we learn from each other, and I think that's a perfect model of collaboration that Steve spoke about earlier on, that we're there to support and help each other. So adding on, so as Bob explained, the MYP is really about how we're teaching the students, and we're also explaining to them why they're learning what they're learning, but this is within the framework of the subjects, okay? So MYP, we've got to do 8 subjects, which is language and literature, which we commonly refer to as English. We have individuals and societies, which is humanities or history, geography, civics, more commonly called. We have mathematics, design, and design basically is not just computers or technology, but it's using the design cycle creatively to build new products, to come up with solutions for problems that are existing. So that's what design is about. Then we have the arts. Within the arts framework at OIS, we offer drama, music and visual arts. And then we move on to sciences. We have physical and health education, and this is really critical. So it's not just the physical component of exercise or learning sports, but also really, really valuable component that we look at is my behavior, okay? Risky decision making, sex and relationship education, all that is covered under the umbrella of physical and health education. And then we move on to language acquisition, and at OIS we offer 3 languages under that umbrella, which are Hindi, French, and Spanish. And I think we've covered all. Yeah. But I think what's really critical, if you look at the MYP model, is that the student, you can see the student in blue is at the center of everything, right? And that is the bottom line. And if you look at the circle around it, the approaches to teaching and learning in global context is, again, going back to what Steve said and what Bob said about, so the MYP tells you not what you should teach, but how you should teach it. So really making learning relevant and contextual and personalized for each individual, okay? And I think if you reflect back on our own lives, things that are relevant to us, things that have meaning to us, we remember for a longer time, okay? And that's the bottom line of the MYP. And the approaches to teaching and learning skills are, again, soft skills or essential skills, rather. So it's skills of research, collaboration that are so critical in today's day and age, right? Okay. So I've covered that. These are the subjects that are offered in the MYP. Okay, and I want to spend a little bit of time about assessment. Now, assessment in the MYP is really, we're focusing on what the students can do, what the students are able to demonstrate, what knowledge do they have already, and do they really understand what they're learning, and are they able to apply what they've learned in a different context, all right? So it's really scenario based, if I can put it like that. It's really contextual, and it's based on, if I'm learning area and perimeter in my mathematics classroom, can I use that skill to design a room or design furniture in my room? So that's how we learn in the MYP, and that's what we're assessing in the MYP. So it's not just, do I know the formula of area and perimeter, but actually, can I apply that formula into a real life situation? Okay? Okay, and another thing really, really different about the MYP is that MYP assessment is related to 4 objectives. Each subject group has 4 objectives, and the objectives are then aligned with criterion in the assessment, okay? Each subject group has 4 criteria, A, B, C, D, which are aligned to the MYP objectives, and the assessment is criteria related. So what that means is that in the MYP, there's no percentage as such, right? So the value or the point that the students get within the criteria actually describe what the students know, what the students can do, and what skills have they acquired during the course of the learning. Okay, so that is what the MYP assessment is all about. It tells the student and the parents what the student is able to do. It also tells the students and the parents what they need to do in order to go to the next step, which I think is really, really crucial. Okay, handing on to my colleague Lucy.
Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Priya. I'm going to speak about the projects part of the middle years program. There are 2 projects that are completed in the MYP program. Not all schools do both of them, but one of them is mandatory, and at OIS we do 2. At the end of grade 8, students complete a collaborative project, and this project enables them to look at an area of need in their community and then work through using the skills that they have learnt, the approaches to learning, subject discipline knowledge, and come up with a solution, and then share that knowledge with the rest of their peers, or even going back to that community to show them the progress they've made and provide them with with the solution they have come up with. The students come up with, they have to go through a process of research, as has been mentioned earlier in this presentation. And it is a great way of us to measure how they're moving from being young people who are working working collaboratively, but also starting to see themselves as independent learners. Moving on to, at the end of grade 10, a mandatory part of the, I've gone the wrong way, a mandatory part of the MYP program is the personal project. Now, the personal project is an independent project that the students choose. It's passion-based and draws on their subject discipline knowledge, but it also can be connected to the wider world as well. They start the project in grade 9 and they can take up to a year or about 9 months to complete the project. They have a supervisor who they work with who can help guide them and facilitate some of their learning where needed. And then they end up producing a report and also celebrating that project by having an exhibition. And we'll be having the exhibition at OGC in November for the first cohort of grade 10's MYP students. And it should be a very exciting opportunity. It is also a great way for us to also look back and see how well our program is developing by making sure that we are teaching inquiry and the skills that are required to fulfil a pre-academic project. Thank you.
Steve mentioned before about the learner profile, and the learner profile is embedded in all we do in MYP, just as it is in PYP and DP. And these are some pictures looking upon our students of last year and what they were doing that actually demonstrated some of the embedding of these learner profiles. First one on the left, caring. This came about very quickly on in the piece of our school as in its first stages of secondary school after the Kerala floods. And the grade 8 students then came to me and said, we want to do something, what can we do? They rolled in very quickly into a services action model. They got PYP on board. They ended up getting food and clothes, and they themselves worked out how they were going to get that to Kerala and how it was going to be distributed. Reflection is key all the way through the learning. The more we can get students to think deeply about reflecting upon their learning, the more they're likely to be able to take some very good action and changes to make themselves a better learner, not just now but for their future. These two I put up out of the science lab, but inquiry is the base of our learning. And our students are always looking at the big inquiry questions as to what could drive their learning, which then within a particular unit or subject of a unit of a subject enables them to be more individualised in their learning. So we look very carefully at where the students are at and where they might be going and how we can guide them. Thinking is important, and thinking is cornerstone. We're really lucky here at JVLR that we have the white walls, we have the desks, you can write on the desks. It means that the thinking of the students is visible so much more. We can see where their next steps are. We can see them discussing with their fellow students what they're thinking about and what they're sharing in that learning. Next up, communicators. Yes, they do have to be very good at communicating, and we believe in a global world. This just doesn't mean in one language. So IB requires of our students under the IB learner profile as well as language acquisition that they do learn another language, and that it's not just about that other language, but it's about the fact that they can take up another language, and in their future, being global citizens, they're more likely that they're going to come across another language. And knowledgeable. We're not going to move away from how important the knowledge is. It's what knowledge is important to keep building upon and developing along the way. And I will say that for every subject we do have specific content knowledge or bodies of knowledge students do need to know. And in most of our subjects, Objective A, which Priya spoke about, is very much about the knowledge side of things and how they can apply that knowledge. Risk takers. We need students of the future to be risk takers so that they feel comfortable stepping out of their zone and looking beyond at what they would be capable of doing. And it might be difficult for them, but in that difficulty, we can support them here within our school to find a space to be a risk taker so that when they move on, they can use that. And of course, balanced, and I put this here deliberately. Yes, we are a BYOD school for bringing your devices and using them, but we see the relevance and the importance of those devices as tools, and it is really important that students know about what balance is about. It's not just with devices, of course, it's in everything in their lives. If we look at the relevance of balancing academia with their social, their mental and emotional, what are they doing physically to make sure that they're going to maintain their overall health and well-being. And I'm handing you over. It's a bit of a team tag team, but this is Sandy.
How are you? You all right? Are you awake? We make it really cold so that helps keep you awake. I'm Sandy. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what it would be like to be a student here. So I'll be talking a bit outside of the curriculum that we've been doing a lot of talk about. This is actually a photo taken at the OGC auditorium, and we have assemblies which are all student run. Student run, they're supported by teachers, but adults only get on the stage by invitation. Everything is managed by the students, and that's a really big thing about what we do here. So at JVLR, we're heading off on, actually both schools are heading off on residential trips in early February, where we take kids out for a full week, or I think it's 6 days in some cases. And they travel together, they leave their devices at home, and they have incredible experiences. So for us and for OGC, the grade 6s go to Ranthambore in Rajasthan and do a whole heap of weird and wonderful wacky things there. There's a service component, they visit the fort, they see tigers, and for many of these kids it's the first time they've been away from mum and dad for that amount of time. So the grade 7s go to Hidden Goa. It's not the Goa you know. It's a very different Goa, and it's absolutely amazing, and so both campuses are heading to Goa. Grade 8 from JVLR are heading to Kangra in Himachal Pradesh. Grade 8 in OGC is heading to Rishikesh. I knew it was Rishikesh. And both grade 9s are going to Yakud in Tamil Nadu. So to kind of give you an idea, so the amount of challenge that each year, there's a the challenge level goes up, and our expectations go up. But I kind of like looking at on the map. So you'll see, does this have a laser? Oh, it does, look. So grade 6, my geography's a little dodgy, so don't judge me if I've put my markers in the wrong place. But grade 6, the Rajasthan, so that's where they go to the Ranthambore Tiger Sanctuary there. Then Hidden Goa, nothing like the Goa you know, here. And then grade 8 are all the way up there for us, and there for OGC. And grade 9 are down there in Tamil Nadu, but right on the border of Karnataka. Then grade 10 are going to, so grade 10 in OGC, they're doing this rafting and, what's that called, kayaking? Rafting and kayaking expedition. It's not just that they go out there and float down. They are going over the rapids, they are moving, and they have to, where they end up, they set up their camp and they do all of their activity, and then they keep going. So that's an amazing, amazing trip that we'll be running for grade 10s. Our grade 11s over there in the Andaman Islands, lucky ducks. And grade 12s, poor things, are probably going to be here in Mumbai because they'll be doing their mock exams and things like that. So we'll do a little stress buster for them somewhere close. But so that's just one aspect of, you know, exploring this magnificent country of India. So both campuses have a really strong, active student council. At JVLR, the student council has already run their first amazing event this week, and they've got things on planned, I think, for every month of the year, and I know it's the same at OGC. They're more than just event organisers, though. They are the eyes and the ears and the conscience of the school, and when we want to find out what's going on, we find that out through the student council. When the student council has when students have a concern, they go to the student council and they bring it to us. And so when we develop things like our behaviour expectations, for example, we have students feed into that. Remember, Priya, we had students coming up and saying, we really disagree with this one being here. We think it's a much worse offence. We think that needs to be raised to a level 5, and they explained why. So students very, very, very active in more than events. So in both. Now this is just a snapshot, there are a gazillion more. But there are kids doing in a recycling club. We've got students who have amazing digital skills, but also are developing leader skills, and they apply to and become our digital leaders, and they're the ones that students go to for their digital support. We've got the Hub Club up here, which is, you know, the middle school, the secondary school library, and so there's a whole group of students there who are working out how to use that space, etc. The Leopard Gazette. What's it called at OGC? I've forgotten. The leopard print. And so they also, that's more of a magazine, this is more of a newspaper. You've got the Leopard's Lair, which is where the students put out communication notices, etc. Oh my God, there are so many clubs and interest groups, whether it's chess or what are some of the ones that would be going at yours? Oh, yes, sorry, I've got MUN coming up too. Oh, Lunch Lounge, these are all taken from yesterday. It's totally student initiated. So the last Friday of every month, students put their names in to play in a band, do a dance, sing a song. Kids gulp their food down, run across to the music room. They don't have to come, but it's standing room only because all of the kids want to be there. So it's the Masters of Ceremony are students, every single person who is performing, and they're literally just from yesterday, and it was a hoot. OAS MUN is happening today over at the at OGC campus. It will be running today and tomorrow, and our students are very active in other MUNs. We do HMUN here rather than the Fireman, so that comes out of Harvard University. If you happen to be an MUNer, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, you can ignore. Amazing though, if you don't know what MUN is, it's where students take on the position of a country in a particular United Nations committee, and they debate with very specific protocols. And so when we're talking about global contexts and being able to communicate, it embodies so many of those things that we are wanting our students to be and become. We do a lot of crazy things. Field days and sports days and craziness. Lots of service. This is just one tiny little glimpse of service, because in MYP it's called Services Action. In the DP it's called CAS, so that's Creativity, Activity and Service. So it's a really important part. We want students to, you know, they have to think of people beyond themselves. So this is just an example that was featured in the IB community blog. So this was one of our grade 8s here and another one there. And they were able to provide solar lighting to a rural school in India. And it wasn't just that they raised money and did that. There was so much more involved in that. And certainly if you're interested in reading it, it's available to you. We've got incredible swimming pools and lots of opportunities for students to improve their swimming, to be coached, be part of a team, to represent OAS in competitions. This is taken on Thursday. We had a bunch of students from OGC and JVLR go to Pune to be part of the IBSO competition. And so quite rainy, or it actually didn't rain, but it threatened the whole time. So there was, I think OGC sent soccer and volleyball, JVLR sent volleyball, JVLR, because I have to brag, I think 4 of the boys got selected and 3 of the girls got selected from the volleyball teams to be part of some IBSO. I know OGC, do you know the... All right, so the football finals are today, so jury's still out on what's happening there, but lots and lots of excitement there. Oh, that's a little blurry, sorry. Last year at OGC, they ran the musical Mulan, and that was absolutely fantastic. This year at OGC, they're putting on Elf Junior. Here at JVLR, they're doing Oz Asterix, so it's loosely the Wizard of Oz, but it's a multi-dimensional experience. They are just pictures of kids who were auditioning this week, and it's going to be an absolute hoot there. Our teachers are really knowledgeable, they're really passionate, they're a little bit crazy, and we like that. Up on the top right, this was a student council thing for the founding students at JVLR last year to put their handprint, to make their mark on the school. So that was a group of teachers there, so they all put their hands there. Where is that now, Steve? Or it's about to be hung, isn't it? Yeah. This was just the other day, and that was for... Thank you. Onam. She's my prompter. Oh, sorry. So we're skilled, we're experienced, we're passionate, and we're just a little bit nuts. So that's a group of teachers last year during Holy. And Steve in the middle there, I might add. So, I know what you're looking for. Here's what we're looking for in our students. We want students who are curious. They're really interested. They want to know what, why, how. We want them to be relentlessly questioning. But why? You know, that annoyance, we don't ever want that to go away. We need and desire that questioning. We want them to take risks, put themselves outside their comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens. We want them to have a really good sense of who they are, and also to appreciate the differences of everyone around them. We want them to be ethical. We want them to be honest. We want our students to be interesting. We don't want them to be just a bunch of bookworms sitting there doing nothing. We want them to be creative and with a fabulous conscience. Interesting kids, and my goodness, we've got some interesting kids. We want to build confidence. If they don't have confidence, we want to build it. Just watching the auditions the other day and watching the students and the teachers helping a kid who was so nervous for their audition and helping them go from this to and it was just incredible. Sometimes you see that confidence build in the space of 2 minutes, sometimes it's over years, but that's something we're working on. Compassionate is hugely important in our world, that we are compassionate and empathetic. Respectful. We're not afraid of failure, we embrace it, we celebrate success, but if we do fail, we dust ourselves off, we reflect, and we get back to it. And I think that's it. Over to you, Steve.
So we're going to do question and answer out in the lobby.
So we're going to exit the auditorium, the different points. The admissions ladies, there they are. They will be on hand to answer all of your questions about the process. And then the rest of us will be spread out in the central section there. Okay, I do want to point out Minal, because even from those nursery parents, I've gotten questions about university starting early. So Minal is on hand as our career and university counselor. If you have any questions about any of those things, you can pose those to her. The rest of us are available for questions as well. And in case you have not gotten the e-prospectus, the QR code is posted in a couple spots toward the front of the lobby. So I did get questions about, well, for example, university acceptances over the years. And so that's in the prospectus. So go ahead and download that. We were trying to be more environmentally conscious by not printing out a whole bunch of booklets. Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank you for your presence today, and I hope you found the session useful and informative, and we look forward to seeing you out in the lobby. Thank you.